The SLED, also known as the Prowler, is a common thing now in a lot of modern gyms with a bit of functional training space. The question is, should you use it? And if so, how's the best way to use it for best results? Hey guys, Ben here at Strength Factory and welcome to the latest episode of Factory Knowledge, which is my weekly video series about all things action sports performance. So this week, we're in the gym and we're looking at the SLED, okay, also known as a Prowler, okay, which is probably what Americans call it because it just sounds a bit cooler. Anyway, they are what you might call a functional training piece of kit, and 5 years ago, you would only see them in a few very specialist gyms or maybe like high performance centers, and 10 years ago it probably didn't really exist apart from like one or two places literally. But now 2020 you can go into Fitness First or Globo Gym or whatever and they'll have a track and a functional training area and they'll have kit like this, okay? So you can have a SLED or Prowler that people can push or pull or drag in order to get fitter and stronger. Now, I'll get this out of the way. I think it's an amazing piece of kit. It's something that I use widely with my clients. However, it is one of those kind of fashionable bits of kit that people see on Instagram and they see just random workouts from random training sessions, completely out of context, and they just say, I want to do that, I want to push a SLED, and you know, maybe it's not that constructive. Okay, so I want to give you the tools today to understand what SLED's all about, what the pros and cons of using it are, and some different ways to go about using it in your programming to become a better human and a better athlete, no matter what sport it is that you're doing. So let's start off with a few considerations about using the SLED, and in particular some reasons why I think it's a really great tool to use. The first one is muscle soreness, or DOMS, okay? That feeling you get later in the day or the next day or 2 days or even 3 days after a hard training session where it's just sore, it hurts and it sucks. That's fine sometimes, okay, but as a rule of thumb, if you want to be getting better at your sport, you need to be doing your sport, and if your legs are crippled, you're not going to be doing very well on your bike. So it's good to try and avoid that. Now, a little bit of science for you, or just practical coaching stuff, is that thinking about soreness, it's the lowering part of an exercise, so in that case a squat, it's the lowering part that tends to make you sore. So if I really want to make someone sore in the gym, if I've had a bad day, I'm going to load them up with a nice heavy weight, and we're going to get them to lower for 5, 4, 3, and so on, okay? And that's a great way to, get stronger, build muscle, but a great way to get sore. Especially as we approach the race season, soreness is to be avoided at pretty much all costs. And that's the great thing about the SLED, is that there's no lowering phase. All we're doing is pushing it, okay, or pulling it. It's all concentric muscle actions, which is where the working muscles are getting shorter under tension, like when we stand up from a squat, rather than lengthening under tension, like on the way down. And so that means that we can work really quite hard on the SLED, trying to work on different physical qualities, and actually we don't end up really sore and crippled the next day. And that is reason one why the SLED can be a really great tool. Number two is that it's actually a pretty low skill thing. It's pretty back to basics, like medieval caveman training, isn't it? We're just going to get something fucking heavy and we're going to push it and get stronger. Low skill is actually a good thing, where especially with a number of different populations. Number one, someone who's just starting out, maybe they're completely new to training, and I want to get them stronger in the gym, but they've got limited mobility, limited skill, and I've got limited time with them. So in that case, loading them up with a deadlift or something may not be appropriate for that person. But you know what I can do? I can load up the SLED and I can get them just doing walking pace with the SLED, and now with enough load, set for that person, I can then get a strength stimulus to that person without having to do endless coaching of technique and refining a technique. So straight away, we can start making progress and start to see results, which at the end of the day is what training is all about. Similarly, with time crunched athletes and things like that, you might say, oh, you should do Olympic lifting and all of that. Well, you can do Olympic lifting,
if you've got time to teach it, to learn it properly and to absolutely master it, because it's incredibly complex and demanding. Whereas this, I can load it up and we can do the hard work. It's really low risk and it's low skill, so that we can get a training effect without spending loads of time coaching fine minutiae of details, okay? And those are two really good reasons why the SLED is a great tool. We're just going to have a little look at some technique now on how to actually go about moving the SLED around the space you've got. Because if you know anything about me, I'm all about the technique, okay? So it's really easy to just switch off and just give it a shove and work in really poor postures. And chances are you spend a lot of your day in poor postures anyway because you sit down too much. So we don't want to reinforce that in the gym. We want to try and improve that in the gym. So when I do a SLED push, for instance, what I'm looking for is a nice flat back, okay, braced in the stomach, okay, avoiding like an arch in the back or anything like that. And you know, from that position, I can then generate force. So we had two versions there, like straight arm or bent arm, depending on what you're trying to achieve. But basically you can see in both of those, I've got a nice flat back position, which doesn't take much coaching to achieve. And a really good way to think about it is the whole time you're pushing the SLED, imagine someone can come and punch you, bosh, in the side there at any moment, okay, and you want to be ready for it. If you're like turned off and floppy, then if they punch you, it's going to hurt. But more importantly, when you're pushing the SLED, you're going to leak power because your hips are going to start to move. And that brings me on to the next part, which is actually moving it forwards, okay? So that was slow motion, obviously, but what I'm trying to get at here is I'm keeping the hips level the whole time. We don't want them rocking from side to side, and I'm bringing alternate legs up underneath my chest and fully extending them out the back. And that way we get a full range of motion, and we're working everything from the, you know, the foot and ankle all the way up, okay, through the glutes, core, and then obviously the shoulders as well. We want the whole body linked together with tension, so that then we create force from the floor, transfer it through the body into the SLED. And that's ultimately the name of the game. Now, as well as pushing the SLED, we can actually pull the SLED as well. And you know, whether you're pushing and pulling, going to work different muscles and just challenge you in slightly different ways. For instance, doing a pull, you're going to get a good bit of grip work going, which sometimes can be really positive, but sometimes you may be better off pushing because you don't want to fatigue the grip because you're riding the next day. So these are all things you've got to think about when you're planning out your training. Now again, when I'm pulling the SLED, I want to think about my posture. It's really easy, whether you're using, you know, you can use a TRX or some straps and handles, or you can just go straight on the SLED. But it's very easy for it to just pull you out of shape here. But actually, pulling the SLED is as much about the upper body here as it is about the lower body that creates the force. So you see a lot of people do this. Okay, and they're just rounded. That rounded back, they're just reinforcing all the bad habits that you've got every day in the office and driving and things like that. And what's the point? Yes, you're going to get tired. Yes, you might make your legs burn, but who gives a fuck, because you're not getting any stronger and you're not improving yourself. This is how you need to do it. So can you see there that I draw the shoulders down and back, and I set myself, and I just sat myself back into it and able to create force and pull the SLED backwards. Now, to be honest, for my body weight, that SLED's a little bit light, so I was trying not to fall over backwards. But hopefully you get the idea that posture, as always, is everything, okay? Even when you're getting fatigued, even when you're going for absolute missions with the SLED later on, I'm coming to in the video. So what you saw there was a heavy SLED push. And what I'm trying to achieve there is single leg strength. Now, a lot of people think single leg strength, but both legs are working. But obviously each leg is working one at a time. And so really it's a single leg exercise, which is also one of the real benefits of doing SLED work is that, well, you can do double leg exercises, but most of the things you can do is single leg, and that then translates well to sport and general life. Anyway, strength. Anyone who's watched my videos or who understands strength training and how to actually get strong will understand that that happens with a high load, okay, and low reps, maybe 1 to 5 reps if you were doing a deadlift or squat, for instance. Now, why should that be any different if we're using the sled to get strong? You know, if you want to get strong pushing the sled, then should you push it for 50 meters with a moderate load and build up a massive lactate burn in your legs? I'd suggest the answer is no. I'd suggest if you want to get strong pushing the sled, then why treat it any different to any other strength exercise? Let's do, around 5 reps on each leg. So 5 strides, so left, right, 5 times. Right there, really maximally putting force into the turf, into the ground to propel the sled forward with a heavy enough load. Right there, we've got enough resistance, enough force going through your body to elicit an improvement in your strength without the technical aspects of maybe deadlifting or squatting or something like that. And so that's one way you can use a sled. Low reps, high load, and just focusing on just bracing the entire body and putting that load through alternate legs. If you do a moderate load and push it further, then we're not really training strength then, okay? But I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So I've just finished pushing the sled up and down a few times, and you may have noticed I think I took about 20 kilos off the sled there. And rather than just doing, 5 reps, I was up and down the track a few times, and I think it's about 12 meters this bit of track in the gym, so I've done like 24 meters or whatever. Now, what's the point of this? Number one, this is no longer a strength exercise. What we're working here is more muscular endurance, okay? And also, building your work capacity, okay? The amount of work that you can do in a given amount of time. And so this is a great way to use a sled for conditioning. The other thing this does is it's going to help you to tolerate that build-up of the burn, okay? That blood lactate levels rising in the muscle, that familiar feeling that we all get in the gym and potentially doing your sport. At the end of a long downhill run, on skis or on a bike, and your thighs are blowing up and they're burning, or at the end of a moto on the motocross bike, or as you get towards the top of a mountain on a trail run, okay? All of those things, we all know what that burn feels like. And sometimes it's really good to train for that by experiencing that and pushing through it in a gym environment, okay? And that's essentially what conditioning is. It's conditioning yourself to tolerate the demands of your sport or activity. And so this has its place as a part of a training program. Now, I'll say there's a caveat to that, is that when it comes to the sled and what I see people doing in the gym and what I see people doing on Instagram every fucking day, is they think that sled is purely for that. It's to go up and down until you basically vomit and your legs explode. And whilst every now and then, or at certain times of year, as we approach race season maybe, that has absolutely got its place, doing that just every time you touch a sled is not productive. And what are you trying to achieve? Okay, all it is picking random exercises off Instagram that some influencer has done that week or whatever, and it's basically a bunch of nonsense. So you've just got to be smart about when you apply these techniques. What am I trying to achieve? What is the goal? What is the outcome? What is the physical quality that I'm trying to achieve using this tool? Because that's all it is. It's a tool, okay? And there's 100 different tools we could use to achieve any given outcome, okay? And if you choose to use a sled, then you've just got to use it in the correct manner for the correct outcome. Speaking of which, let's go and do some power work. Some people know they can't believe Jamaica, we got a bobsled team. And that is probably one of the best things about pushing a sled, is you can pretend that you're Sanka from Cool Runnings, one of my all-time film heroes. But on a serious note, as you can see there, I reduced the weight again. And so I took another 25 kilos off the sled. So I had 60 on the sled, but that's going to vary loads depending on body weight and strength and stuff like that. And what I was trying to do now is I'm trying to move that sled as fast and as powerfully as I can. I'm trying to put maximum force through the floor as quickly as I can, trying to express power, okay, in that sort of forward motion. And again, don't forget you can do this pulling as well. It doesn't have to just be pushing. Now, getting more powerful is like getting more strong. Low reps is where it's at with high rest periods, okay? So I'm not going to be doing that for 50 meters up and down until my legs explode, because then after the first one, I'm then not going to be powerful for the next rep or the one after that. I'm going to do that one maximum effort, powerful rep, where I'm developing loads of single leg power, and my entire body is braced. It's incredibly demanding. And then I'm going to recover. I'm going to do something else, do some upper body work or whatever, or look in the mirror. And then 5 minutes later, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do that again. And because I'm well rested, because my nervous system has recovered, it's then going to let me put that maximal force back into the sled so that we can then put enough force through it to actually elicit a training effect. And to get a training effect, you don't have to feel #beast mode, the fucking burn in your legs. It's not about that. It's about maximal force through that sled. Now, I'll give you a warning on this one. You need to have a good level of strength, and in particular, you need to make sure that your lower leg is well conditioned, i.e. your foot and your ankle, if you're going to start doing explosive work. I've seen with my own eyes in this very gym, not with me, somebody in one of the classes who was totally unprepared to do it, tried to sprint with the sled, bang, Achilles and calf, fucking straight up, literally shot up the back of their leg. It was minging and they ended up having to have surgery. Anyway, that's a whole other story. The bottom line is that if you work 9 to 5 in accounts and you're new to training, then you've got no business trying to run with the sled, because you're going to end up in A&E or in the physio's room. This is to be thought of, despite the fact it's relatively low skill, it's very high stress on your body. It's going to put a lot of load, especially through your Achilles and your ankle area. And so if you've got any issues there, then I'd give this a miss. Or the other way to approach this is to gradually build up. So, in week 1, maybe you don't quite put maximum effort in. You build up slowly, so you start walking, and then you get a bit faster in the middle of the track, and then you decelerate, rather than just trying to go full cool runnings and max acceleration off the blocks, okay? And that way we gradually acclimatise your body to that stress, and you test it out to see, how your body copes with it at sub-maximal loads, and then only after that period of time where you feel confident that you can do it with good technique and that your body can take it, then you can start to put maximum force through the sled. And that's ultimately my approach to anything. I don't get people just coming in on day 1 and doing box jumps and power work and met ball passes and stuff like that, because they're not ready for it 99% of the time, okay? Despite what you might want to do, despite what your friend on Instagram does, you've got to do the work first to prepare yourself to move on, okay? You've always got to play the long game, you've always got to be consistent. So, hopefully, I haven't baffled you, and hopefully you've got a little insight there on how to go about using the sled or Prowler if you're lucky enough to have access to one in your gym. Now, if you've got any questions about this, bang them in the comments below, or obviously find me a message on Instagram or something like that. And yeah, hit like, hips, you know what to do. Cheers.